The history of man can never be complete without the mention of Egypt and Mesopotamia. These countries and regions played a huge part in shaping the world into what it is today. With advancements in medicine, agriculture, and science since the Bronze Age, we sometimes wonder what it was like in the past. But while ancient history is so different from what we have today, it is best to know the histories of some of the best and worst drugs we know today. Join us to learn about the past and what drugs were like in ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. Relics of ancient history. Religion, pottery, and agriculture have existed for as long as humanity can remember, yet they are not the only things that have been passed down to the modern man through time. Records from the ancient world show that alcohol and narcotics are some of the fragments of history that made it to the present times. With the history of alcohol dating back to 7000 BC, one can only assume what else has survived that long. Beyond the use of beer and wine in ancient Egypt, drugs or intoxicants were equally as common as they are today. Similar to what they do today, these drugs induced hallucinations, but were also very useful in ancient health practices and even religious rituals. All this brings us to the obvious question: what were these drugs? What did they look like? And where are they today? Opium. One of the most dangerous forms of narcotics we know today is no stranger to human history. As one of the most dangerous narcotics to ever exist, opium is still a marvel to science today. Also known as poppy tears, opium is derived from an immature poppy fruit. Used in ancient times to treat pain, poppy has come a long way from its use back then. The use of opium, or its mother plant, poppy, goes as far back as 3500 BC. It was cultivated in Lower Mesopotamia and was referred to as the joy plant by Sumerians. The Sumerians passed their knowledge of this plant to the Assyrians, who transferred it to the Egyptians. To the ancient civilization, poppy was a powerful pain reliever. On the downside, it was heavily addictive. It was used in moderation to prevent the user from being addicted. Yet despite the careful measures, most people ended up being dependent on them. The poppy plant, when ripe, was harvested and stored for use. The seeds were soaked in water for hours, drained and then ground with water and a sweetener to make milk of the poppy. This juice was then used to relieve the pain of seriously wounded people by putting them to sleep. Opium, which is a product of the poppy plant, was a different story altogether. Evidence from ancient history showed that it was consumed in different ways. It was either smoked, eaten plainly, or eaten in mixtures. Besides the medicinal use of treating pain, opium was also used to put people painlessly to death when mixed with hemlock. Similarly, it was used in rituals as seen from the earliest findings in these areas. Although opium had been known to the Sumerians long before the Egyptians, it was the Egyptians who encouraged its spread. By farming poppy in 1300 BC, Egyptians traded these plants to Greece, Carthage, and Europe. Over time, regions in China, Britain, and Asia became part of the opium trade. Like most Egyptian myths, the poppy plant was linked to an Egyptian god. Thoth, the god of wisdom, was credited for the invention of opium. While poppy was farmed intentionally, the use of opium was left to priests, healers, and magicians. To harvest opium from poppy, the poppy fruit will be scratched. The latex that comes out is allowed to dry before it is collected. With raw opium, the possibilities were endless. Till today, opium has retained its relevance in medicine. Over the years, there have been several derivatives of opium. Morphine, which was the earliest derivative, was very useful in the First and Second World Wars. Other derivatives collectively known as opioids include codeine, heroin, and oxycodone. Despite the different names, all opioids have the same effect on the body in varying degrees. In the past and present, they were used therapeutically to treat pain and cause excitement, yet they are deadly as they are beneficial because they can cause death when used in excess. Alcohol. On record, alcohol remains the oldest and most accepted form of drug. The origin of alcohol is so lost to time that it cannot be pinned to an exact date and period. The residue of a 13,000-year-old beer in modern-day Israel by scientists shows just how long humans have enjoyed the taste and effects of this drug. Dating back to 7000 BC, Traces of fermented beverage were discovered in an archaeological jar after chemical analysis in China. In Iran, traces of an alcoholic beverage dating back to 5400 BC was found. Ancient texts from Sumeria and ancient Egypt also mentioned the use of alcohol for medicinal purposes. The positions of these discoveries and their significance also showed that they were used for various purposes. There have even been speculations that it was the desire for more alcohol that led to the cultivation of agriculture. The only difference between alcohol in ancient times and alcohol in present times is the production process. Back in history, alcohol was produced through fermentation. Like all foods that contain sugar, fermentation occurs when it is exposed to air for a period of time. The exposure to air causes yeast and other bacteria in the air to act on the food and convert it to alcohol. While the history and production of alcohol differ in history, they all have one thing in common. Alcohol was used for celebrations, rituals, and several social activities. Over the years, different variations of alcohol were noticed. Each type of alcohol had the power to send someone into a different state of consciousness. As such actions were synonymous with spirituality, it is no wonder how alcohol became attributed to religion. Cannabis. As one of the most widely recognized recreational drugs, cannabis has many names, often referred to as marijuana, pot, bush, and even 420. This plant has a long history with humans, but while it is majorly known for stimulating the feeling of euphoria, it has other benefits. The history of cannabis goes as far back as the Neolithic period. It was one of the earliest plants to be cultivated by the Japanese and Chinese regions of Asia. But before it was known as a psychoactive drug, it was valued for its fiber and as a food source. Somewhere along the line in history, cannabis was introduced to the ancient Assyrians, Mesopotamia, and Egypt. Each of these countries had their own method of use for this plant. In countries such as the Thracians and Dacians, the shaman would burn flowers of the cannabis plants to induce a trance. Other countries were also reported to burn the cannabis plant and smoke it for pleasure. All these were some of the pleasurable benefits. In most places, they were used in clothing, medicine, and religion. But how did a plant so versatile in its use become so controversial? In all its forms and variations, cannabis is dangerous, and when abused, it can have disastrous effects. However, it is safe to say that the use of cannabis was one of three: spiritual, monetary, and medicinal. In ancient texts, paintings, and records, Mesopotamians used cannabis judiciously in their day-to-day life. Hemp, a variant of cannabis, was used to make clothing and ropes. Marijuana, another variant of cannabis, was medicinal. It was reported to have been used as a painkiller for people with different diseases. Due to its presence in graves and burial sites, it may have also been used in ancient funeral practices. The multiple benefits of cannabis make it highly profitable to trade. From ancient times till the present, several countries had one thing in common: trading cannabis to consumers. Because of its use in several forms, the plant itself has come under scrutiny. All over the world, it has caused mayhem and destruction in the lives of young people. This has led to it being branded as a dangerous narcotic. Sadly, what was once valued for its benefits is seen as nothing more than a stimulant. Tobacco. It may be hard to believe, but smoking has been part of human activity for centuries. Ancient Egyptians were said to have smoked tobacco at ceremonies and celebrations. This shows that they understood it as a recreational drug and explored its benefits. But how did they get this knowledge? How much did they know about tobacco? And what else was it used for? The use of tobacco dates back to 1400 BC. At this time, it was mainly used for its euphoric benefits. Like their neighbors, ancient Egyptians used tobacco for entertainment. Besides smoking, the nicotine in tobacco served other benefits. It had anti-herbivore toxin, which served as an insecticide when used in agriculture. However, the pleasurable benefits of tobacco outweighed the agricultural use. When used continuously, it became addictive and was hard to break away from. But in ancient times, it was easy to fall prey, as it was consumed either by chewing, sniffing, or smoking. Fortunately, tobacco was not only limited to narcotics in ancient times. It was used medicinally for the treatment of aches and bleeding. When ground and applied to cuts, The tobacco leaves stopped bleeding and also acted as an antiseptic. When burned, the smoke is blown to an infected ear to treat earache. In the year 1890, cultivating tobacco was banned in Egypt. However, the use and application still remain to date. Regardless of the situation, the history of this drug. The Blue Lotus. In ancient Egyptian history, the blue lotus is a symbol of creation and immortality. Beyond its ethereal beauty, this flower was also believed to be divinely connected to the sun god Ra, as well as other gods, namely Osiris and Isis. With its connection to these gods, it is no wonder the flower meant so much to Egyptian history. Its ability to thrive in areas where normal plants would not grow made it special and even earned it a place in the historic Book of the Dead. But what was the main purpose of this plant? Among the knowledge of other plants and herbs in history, ancient Egyptians were particularly captivated by this flower. In several art pieces, the blue lotus was held close to the nose, a nudge to its aromatic scent and pleasant smell. Furthermore, its presence in artworks from ancient tombs also signifies its use in mummification rituals. But it did not end there. Generally, the blue lotus played a huge part in ancient Egyptian history and lore, and it was not limited to pleasure. In religious practices, it was part of the offerings made to the gods. As a symbol of clean beginnings, they believed the smell and beauty made the gods happy and would encourage his blessings. The presence of the flower in the stories of each of the gods, Ra and Osiris, also solidified its role in creation and life. For a country with deep-rooted beliefs in the mysteries of soul and body, this flower played a huge part in these practices. Beyond its use in boosting soul knowledge, it opened the mind by inducing a feeling of euphoria and relaxation. Additionally, the health benefits of this herb are numerous. Its primary function of calming the body directly helps in reducing pain, swelling, and treating insomnia and even anxiety. Biologically, the blue lotus is an aquatic lily with vibrant blue petals and belongs to the genus Nymphea. After being studied by modern scientists, the lotus flower has two active parts called the apomorphine and the nuciferine. The apomorphine is responsible for the mind-altering effects. By working primarily on the dopamine receptors of the brain, it makes you relaxed and triggers an aphrodisiac feeling. On the other hand, nuciferine has more health benefits and is responsible for pain reduction. Presently, the blue lotus has remained a part of art, culture, and religion. It has retained its mystery like the yin and yang of Chinese culture, but has also become a part of scientific breakthroughs. Coca plant. Like the cannabis plant, the coca plant has faced backlash due to its use. Presently, it is listed as a controlled substance with a high potential for misuse. Yet, it has been used by ancient historians for centuries before the modern man. How did they use it? What effects did it have on them? These are some of the questions anyone can ask when you make this discovery. Whether it was used as a medicinal plant or for relaxation, we may never know, but the traces left behind can tell us a little more than we hope to know about the plant. Closely resembling a blackthorn bush, the coca plant can grow up to 10 feet, scientifically known as Erythroxylum coca. The coca plant is known better by its derivative, cocaine. For over 4,000 years, the coca plant was used medicinally in its original habitat. As the years progressed, migrations and trading expanded the reach of this plant to several corners of the world. The leaves of the coca plant were known to native inhabitants of the American region as a healing plant. They would chew its leaves to suppress appetites, cure indigestion, and elevate moods. Somehow, the uses and benefits of coca were not lost to ancient Egyptians. The remains of an ancient Egyptian showed traces of cocaine in her hair. Henut Tawi, also known as a cocaine mummy, was an Egyptian priestess who was speculated to have lived in 1000 BC. Not much is known about her life, but after the discovery of her tomb, it is believed the Egyptians may have accessed this powerful drug. Cocaine and nicotine were some of the chemicals found in her hair, and the remains of other mummies found in the area. It is assumed that the presence of these chemicals is due to the contamination of the sites. Presently, the coca plant, and by extension, cocaine, is seen as a health risk. After its introduction into the health industry, it was immediately seen as a danger and removed accordingly. Some of the effects suffered when abused include depression, mood swings, and bleeding of the lungs. In ancient times, the coca plant may have been used medicinally, but it is safe to say the effects were not known at the time. Laudanum. If you think the ancient Egyptians and Mesopotamians lived well, think again. Consuming alcohol or opium separately negatively affects your body, but a mixture of alcohol and opium is disastrous. This mixture of pondered opium and alcohol was referred to as laudanum. Described as a reddish-brown liquid, this bitter mixture contained several alkaloids of opium, including morphine. In ancient times, it was used as a powerful pain relief, as well as a treatment for cough. One of the scary things about laudanum was that it was administered in ancient history without any prescription. This meant the wrong dose would not just put you out, it could also kill you. Another scary fact is that it is highly addictive. This meant it could be hard to break free once you become dependent on its ability to take away pain. Another interesting fact of laudanum was that it was used in ancient times on both adults and children. Although children are hardly in a position to experience much pain, laudanum was used when needed. In instances where babies were teething or having trouble sleeping, laudanum was readily applied. Although laudanum was invented and used by the Romans, Egyptians, and ancient historians, it is still in use today. Presently, the mixture has been modified to reduce the opium levels. However, the present tincture is available by prescription and only when necessary. Hashish. The hashish is a variant of the cannabis plant, also referred to as hash. It is a resin derived by crushing the flowering buds of the plant. Said to alter brain function when consumed by smoking, the hashish has been in use for many years. The history of its discovery and time frame is unknown. Several countries, including Egypt, present-day Afghanistan, Iran, and even India, are all reported to have used it in the past. Hashish is deeply rooted in the Arabic world, and the word assassins is coined from it. The word assassin is said to be a corruption of the word hashishin, which means hashish smoker in Arabic. Hashish is also mentioned in an Egyptian pamphlet dating back to 1123 BC. This was a symbol of its importance to ancient history. Like cannabis, hashish can induce relaxation or pleasure when smoked. The main difference between cannabis and hashish was the method of ingestion. While cannabis could be consumed in different ways, hashish had to be smoked or ingested orally. But because it burned poorly, hashish had to be mixed with tobacco before it was smoked. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.